I think so many people don't know why they're here.
Unfortunately.
Why are you here? Why do you
I
think you're here?
think, you know how I see myself in this superhero movies. There are always like a Gandalf, a Dumbledore, someone who guides the hero. I think my mission is not to
Right.
the hero itself, but to awaken the hero,
Hmm.
to guide this hero and to tell him or her why she is here. So I see myself really as a guide because I can see the spirits of the person and I tell like what kind of spirit he or she is, for example, angelic or whatever. So I see myself as a guide and to enlighten people because the channel is really strong and I'm not hiding it anymore. So
Hmm.
this is my purpose here.
Welcome to the Illuminating Wisdom podcast. I'm your host, Marcia Nurgül Weldon, and I'm a lawyer, business strategist, corporate trainer, and executive coach. Each week, I'm going to bring you my favorite entrepreneurs, thought leaders, legal professionals, and other coaches who will inspire, educate, and empower you. So I am here with Melissa Kazan. I'm so excited to have you here because we have so much in common. But I'm not going to introduce you. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Now, I have generally an audience of lawyers, professionals,
Mm-hmm.
business people, and some people who are kind of woo like me. So tell people exactly who you are and why this is going to be an amazing
Thank
episode.
you for the invitation, first of all. Yes, so Melissa, and I'm a psychic, and I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm an author and a speaker. So I have a deep dive into the subconscious mind and the spiritual world, and I love to combine it. And this will be an fantastic episode because I think people are curious about these topics and they want to know more. And I have a lot of to deliver today.
Fantastic. So one thing that's really interesting is that you actually started off in business. You've talked about a psychic, hypnotherapist, etc., and speaker. But how did you go from business to being? Well, you were probably always a
Yeah.
psychic. So how did you go from being a business to kind of more like a coach that focuses on spirituality and the
Yes, for sure,
subconscious?
because I never mentioned that I studied business economics and I worked for 10 years in corporate. It was for me like
Right.
working in jail. And I always, like, especially the last years, I questioned, like, is this the reason of life? Why am I here to do some Excel and PowerPoint presentations and so on? And I was questioning all the time. And I felt more and more depressive, frustrated, and really, really unhappy. I was really depressive, spending hours in front of Netflix
Hmm.
and so on. And I said, no, this isn't it. And 10 years ago, I started my journey with spirituality.
So I know that there's probably half my listeners are saying, I'm doing the same thing. I'm depressed. I hate my life. So but for some people, like the money is too
Yeah.
good to leave. I am really lucky that I think I'm a unicorn. I love everything I do. I'd probably do
Hmm.
it for free. Not really. If anybody's who pays me for stuff, I really wouldn't do it for free. But I'm super happy. But I know that many people I know, many of my colleagues, many of my coaching clients, many of my students who are going into the legal profession are going into a situation where many people are very,
Yeah.
very unhappy, but they make a good living, or society expects them, or they did all that
Exactly.
studying. So how am I
Hmm.
going to leave? What am I going to do? So what was it that gave you that courage to make that leap, and not to make a leap from one corporation to another corporation, but from just going completely on the
Yeah,
other
yeah,
side?
because during the 10 years, I switched a lot during the companies because I thought when I switch, I will get happier. It will change. This is why I really,
Right,
really jumped. And people were
right.
asking, like, why did you switch so often? And you never can tell the truth. And this year, I quit my job fully. So the reason was
Hmm.
that I was telling myself, okay, I cannot stay within this life anymore. The thing is that the suffering and the
Right.
pain was so huge, so immense that I couldn't stand it
Yeah.
anymore. I couldn't breathe. And it was like
Mhm.
so extensive that I said, okay, I have to change it right now. The thing is that we have to work on our subconscious that we believe that we can make it. Unfortunately, many people make that jump without thinking or just, okay, I leave it and the universe will help me. It's not working like that. And this is why I'm here also today to explain it is simple, but not as you think maybe it is.
It's simple
Yeah,
but not
yeah,
easy.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
that's a better way
exactly.
to say it. So I think people who know me know I'm very focused on things like the subconscious mind, but who knows how many people really understand how that works. So when you say the subconscious, right, I think people have heard about it. People have heard about things like manifestation. If I just
Hmm.
say I believe it, it'll come true. I watch The Secret. All right. So what's the misunderstanding, that the most common misunderstandings you
Hmm.
think about when it comes to what the subconscious is and how it
Well, the
works?
biggest misunderstanding is that if I do 100 times affirmations, that my subconscious will change, as you said. It's not about the
Mm,
affirmations.
right.
We have a brain, we have a human body, we have a DNA. So we have to first understand that the
Hmm.
amygdala is connected to the reptilian brain, and the neurocortex is not itself only functioning, but there's a huge system behind. So the subconscious keeps me
Right.
alive, this human body. So whatever it costs, the first thing is that it has to keep you alive, not making you happy, not making
Right.
you satisfied. It's about being alive no matter what. And this is why the
Hmm.
subconscious tries to keep us in our comfort zone, because this is the safe zone where we survive. So when I do the affirmations, money comes with me with ease and joy and glory, it doesn't work because it has this mindset. And the subconscious is also the thing when we are asleep at night. Our heart beats, we keep breathing,
Hmm.
everything, all the system does the
Hmm.
subconscious again. So it is not only
Hmm.
a mindset or something, but it is much more beyond that. It is the whole system. Our existence rely on the subconscious.
Got it. So, you talked about affirmations about money comes to me easily, etc. And people say these 100 times, and they, go under a full moon or a
I
new
did
moon,
that.
etc. None of which I'm against, right? I say none of which I'm against, right? And we'll talk in a little while about the significance of 12/12, because we're recording
Yes.
this on 12/12. People won't see it later, but it's a significant day. But you also worked with Dr. Ken Honda, who people know
Yes.
is very famous in terms of money, and he has a very specific way of looking at money and manifestation. What are some of the biggest blocks people have when it comes to making money, earning money, or even thinking that it's
Hmm.
possible, right? Because for you to make the leap into what you did, you had to believe it was possible. You had to know it, or at least be courageous enough to take a chance. But when it comes to money, everybody needs it. I know sometimes there's a thought of, some people grew up saying, well, money is the root of all
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
evil,
exactly.
or people are greedy. There's a lot of things that come into us that we get programmed even
Hmm.
as children. So when you work with people around money issues, kind of what's some of the best advice you have on
I
that?
directly go to the childhood and to the family system, to the ancestors. There it starts because it is in my DNA. It is not only my father, my mother, because where did they get their limiting beliefs? From whom? Their parents. And from where did they
Right.
get it? So we have to look a little bit much more back to the past and not only our parents. And it is about changing it.
Right.
There is only one more
Mhm.
big misunderstanding about that I have to cut the connection to my ancestors and whatever. It's not about cutting the
Right.
connection. I say, hey, it's a superpower. Like, why do you want to cut the connection to the ancestors, but transform this?
Right.
Because this is only one thing of many.
Mhm.
Thanks to our ancestors, we are alive, but they experienced something. And this experience makes us believe money is evil, or much money makes us whatever, bad people. And this is what we have it in the
Right.
subconscious. And this is really, really like deep in the subconscious inside, so that we cannot easily change it with some affirmations. And Ken Honda does that. He goes to the childhood, he goes to the subconscious, and there he changes the roots, because otherwise it makes no sense. I lost a lot of money because of my limiting beliefs about money, a lot, where I thought,
Right.
oh, like, yeah, and it hurts.
So there's a lot of threads we can take from there. So one of those is the thought about childhood. And I know you do work with childhood and
Mhm,
childhood trauma. Now there's some people that say when you ask people to remember things from childhood, etc., it can
mhm,
re-traumatize them. Um, what's and I know there's other people who focus on it, and I believe this, what you learn from
mhm.
0 to 7, particularly 0 to 3, but definitely 0 to 7, it affects
Exactly.
everything. And one of the things I ask people is, what did you have to do or say to receive love when you were about 7 or 8, right? Or to receive attention. And that's the thing that carries on for everybody, right? So when you look at childhood and when you talk to people about childhood, what do you tell them to examine without being their therapist or their psychiatrist? And because as far as I'm concerned, I don't think you're a therapist,
Not
correct?
officially. Yes, yes, yes. The hypnotherapy,
Hypnotherapy,
yes,
yes,
but not
but
the
right.
therapist
Okay,
itself.
so
Yeah, yeah.
correct. Right. And we'll talk about the hypnotherapy in a second. But what do you focus on when it comes to childhood? Because for some people, they suppress those deep
Unfortunately.
wounds or they don't want to talk about them. So how do you get them to talk about it, and why is it important? What kind of changes have you seen when people start to really examine what childhood does or
It
did?
takes a lot of courage to face it. This is why people are running away from this kind of stuff, and they do spiritual
Yes.
stuff, energy work, and so on, but it's not helping at all. It is painful to face it, but if you face it, then there is a big healing. I had a lot of results. And how I do it, that, for example, if people are like running away, I only say them, do you really, when you get 80 and you change nothing, and when you look back, won't you then say,
Right.
I could have lived my life in a different way? And this is the most painful thing,
Right.
when you lose the time more and more and more, and you say, look back, and it's too late then, because time you cannot buy. There is one thing that is not
Absolutely.
irreversible, in its time. So the price is too
Right.
high.
So the price is too high. Now, you said you've had some great results. Is there any story you're comfortable sharing? Obviously, leaving out names, but is there anything that you can kind of share with people to help make this a little bit more
Yeah, for
concrete for them
sure.
about how working on childhood
Yeah,
has
yeah. I
helped?
have a lot
Hmm.
of stories. One of my greatest successes, a woman, age
Hmm.
25, she had social phobia, so she couldn't get outside of the house without her parents or anyone. She get panic attacks and so on. And she
Hmm.
had years of therapy. She even stood in the clinic and so on, but no results. In the end, the doctor said, sorry, you have to learn to live with that. We can do nothing. There is nothing to do. So she came to me like I was her last hope. Uh, I did really
Really?
one session. I found out what the root is, and here is where my psychic abilities helps a lot. So I go to the root, I find it out, and then with hypnotherapy, I transform it. After that, 3 weeks later, I got a message. Melissa, you won't believe what happened. I am on my own at the university. I go shopping right now, and so on. And like, imagine years of therapy and only one session, because hypnosis is really the king of all techniques. And it is also in the medicine accepted. It's really, really very powerful if you
Yes.
find the true root. If you find it, this is the important thing.
Right.
The analysis is the most important.
Right. So you and I are both hypnotherapists. And it's curious because some people get very
Hmm.
resistant. And no matter what you tell them, look, all hypnosis is self hypnosis. It's like, you tell them all the things, but
Hmm.
people get like, I don't know. So with things like hypnosis, how do you overcome the skeptics? So you and I know how
Oh, yeah.
powerful it can be, but how do you overcome the skeptics, or how do you get people to even be willing
Hmm.
to try it?
So I explain in a scientific way what it is, what it does with the body, and why it is so powerful, about the theta level of the brain. So I got to get here really, really like scientific, because then they are okay. If science says something, it must be true.
I,
And then
right.
I step back. I I say I don't
Hmm.
sell a plate, whatever, a house or car. I don't sell anything.
Hmm.
I have I have the
Right.
result, or no, not the result, but the medicine for you, and you have to come to
Right.
me. So I don't insist, never. I say, okay, you can try it, but if you don't want to, I don't
Hmm.
insist, because then I don't get any results. For sure, it's then a little bit sad to
Right.
watch, because you have the medicine and this person is afraid to take it. But I step back. When I step back, they get curious. One moment, she's not trying to sell. And I'm very self-confident by telling
Yes.
it, and I sell and tell them my stories, my success stories, and I wait for them to come. I never go to them, make a hypnosis, do a hypnosis, da, 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 because this makes them like more skeptical, more anxious, and they don't come in the end. So I say, if you want, I have the medicine. It's like aspirin. If you have a headache, you go and take it. I'm not selling a vitamin B,
Right.
because vitamin D you can get and
Right.
not, but if you have a headache, you try to get a solution. And I need
Yeah.
those people who have a
Mhm.
headache and says like, okay, now I need a solution for this.
So, do you think everyone can be hypnotized, or there's some people that just can't be hypnotized? And how do you
I
know?
know it directly when about their reactions for sure, and if they are in their mind.
Mhm.
So if someone says, "You cannot hypnotize me, but let's try it," I say then, "Sorry, I will not hypnotize you because you
Right.
already
'Cause they're
closed
talking about
yourself." So it's all about trust,
right.
and I always say like, "What kind of advantage should I have by doing any harm?" For sure, there might be some, but it makes no sense for me. Like, what do I do? Yeah, it makes no sense.
Well, don't forget, people have, they see things on
Unfortunately.
television or they see the stage hypnosis. I'm going to quack like a chicken or give
Yeah,
me all
yeah,
of your
yeah, yeah.
money or whatever it is
It
that
can
people
be
think. So I
misused
think that that's why,
for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
And this is why I like, if you want, you can get it. Otherwise, you're free. Like, and this makes them more comfortable with
Right.
that. And but not everyone can be hypnotized. It's some people are close to that. They don't want it, and I don't do it then for sure because it makes no sense. You get no results, and
Correct.
yeah.
And then they're
Yeah,
more
yeah,
angry in the first place.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
see, I told
exactly,
you it wouldn't work.
exactly.
So I did not get a chance to see this because you were in Tallinn, Estonia at Mind Valley last July
Yeah.
or in July. I didn't come till week 3, so I missed your presentation. But I know that you did a
Hmm.
presentation on
Hmm.
childhood trauma and limiting beliefs and
Yes.
sabotage. And then you did a hypnotherapy session
Oh
for
my God,
240 people.
yes.
So walk us through what that was like. First of all, what were some of the things that our audience can get some benefit from in terms of some of the things that you shared
Hmm.
with the group? And then let's go to what it was like to do hypnotherapy for 240 obviously
Yeah,
willing
yeah.
people because they wouldn't have gone there
Yeah.
otherwise. But
Yeah.
tell us about the
Yeah,
first
the
part.
first part was about being vulnerable on the stage and showing my own
Mhm.
life, because this makes then access
Yes.
to the audience to show them, okay, look, this is my childhood, and this is the reason why I experience it, and then how did I change it? I make the storyline out of it, and I explained like why is that,
Mhm.
and I took myself as an example there. And I really like an open book, no hiding, this, and people get some sympathy towards me, and I can really felt that they were really interacting also. And I asked them questions and so on, so that they feel understood. Like, oh, I'm not the only one.
What were some of the questions that you asked? Give me an example of some of the questions so that the audience members can ask themselves questions because they
For
couldn't be
example,
there.
one of the question was, I said that I don't remember my all of my childhood. And I asked, like, how many of you don't remember their childhood? And there was really almost half of the audience who raised their hand. And I said, like, look to each other, like, you are not the only one. And this was one of the, and for example, who has a narcissistic father or mother, because we are not aware of this as a child, and then we think this is normal, and then it disturbs our psychology, and what it can make out of us, our self-confidence, our beliefs, mindset, everything gets affected by that. And this, it was really amazing. People had like opened their eyes with that.
So I saw you did a video on Instagram about
Hmm.
narcissists, right? And I think a lot of people throw the word around like he's a narcissist, she's a narcissist. Um, what is it? What is a narcissist, and how do you know if you were raised by one or if you are
Hmm.
one? And chances are, if you are one, you don't think you're the
Yeah,
narcissist.
yeah,
But
yeah. I have a lot of clients in the last days, for example, who come to me and he says like, yeah, my partner says I have a narcissistic disorder, blah, blah, and so on. And I want to solve this. And I said like, no, wait one moment, because I had also psychology education. So I'm not a psychologist, but I'm a psychology advisor.
right,
So we learned all the syndromes
mhm,
there and so on. So, and the
right,
narcissist is the
hmm
one who is never his or her fault, but it is the other one's fault. It is like a lot of playing with psychology and making you feeling guilty by blaming you and playing with emotions for sure. And this ups and downs, they are like nice, and then they are like mean, and they are nice, and they say sorry, and you say, okay, I forgive you, and then they do the same behavior again and again. There is a pattern. You have to see the pattern here. If you realize the pattern, then
Right.
you can understand, oh, okay, I have a narcissist in front of me. My father is one, but I realized it when I was 39 that he was a narcissist, or still is, because he played me against
Mm-hmm.
my mother and my brother. Look, they behave so bad to me, and I'm the victim here, and blah blah blah. And to them, he was different behavior, very mean and very nasty and so
Yeah.
on. But I couldn't distinguish this. Oh, my poor father gets bullied by my mother, but it was the other way around. So, and the thing is that the victims of the narcissist, they have a problem with themselves, forgiving themselves, because they were fooled. You feel fooled in the end. Like how couldn't I realize it? How was I so stupid? My ex-mother-in-law was also narcissist. Although in
Mm-hmm.
psychology they say narcissists are men and women are borderline. So there is
Huh.
a
Okay.
thin line between them, because women and men are different in
Mm-hmm.
that case of behavior. Women use more the emotional part,
Mm-hmm.
and men more like being dominant and like more strong and egocentric. So it's not easy to distinguish, to be honest. Only when you get out of the picture,
Mm.
then you realize, then it's
And you can see it.
then it's a little bit too late, because you spent a lot of years, and it's about self-forgiving then, to forgive yourself first, not the other person,
Mhm.
but it's the hardest thing, I think, to forgive yourself.
I I think that is 100% true. I spend a lot of time thinking about forgiveness, and I write about forgiveness, and I talk about it a lot. And the hardest thing is for people to forgive themselves. And of course, that comes like, from the childhood conditioning, which comes, from the various ancestors, which, you're right. You can't cut it off. You have to address it. You have to understand. That doesn't mean that you need to, spend time around the person that's harmed you.
Mm.
You can love them from a
Yeah,
distance,
still.
right? Um, but forgive yourself and forgive them and move on, I think, is the
Hmm.
easiest way to heal, because I think if you don't forgive, you
No.
can't heal. And you sit there, and it has physical manifestations. I think it has generational. We've learned about things like
Yeah.
epigenetics now, where things kind of continue to pass down. So if for no other reason, so that your children don't go through this and their children don't go through this, we have to kind of work on
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
ourselves. But I want to go back to something you said earlier about being a psychic. So when did you know you were a psychic? How did you know? And when did you feel comfortable telling people about your talent, your gifts?
I found out in 2017. I went to a psychic back then.
Mhm,
I was about, shall I divorce or not?
mhm,
I was very confused back then. And I wrote a paper full of questions. I went to him, and he was like, put the paper away, and da, 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 and he talked and he answered all the questions on the paper without knowing the questions. And I was like, oh my God, I want to
uh-huh,
do that too. Somehow I got attracted to that. And he was making a course, 3 modules, and I visited all of them. The first one, I realized, okay, there's something weird, because I started reading people and so on. And he came to me and said, okay, you are special gifted. Like, not everyone is like that high, but, and in the future, you will do more. And I said, oh, okay. And in 2018, in the third module, I then in the last that we had a little exam, and I passed it, and it was like really
mhm,
really crazy. I like all the exercises we did, I hit like almost 100%. And I said, nah, maybe I'm
mm,
making it up, and so on, this mind thing. During the years,
right,
it developed more and more, more and more. And to be honest, like this year, I'm like going to the outside. I made it, but like at backstage through friends and so on, a little
yes,
bit. I was like afraid
right,
of being like criticized or bullied or whatever. I was
or
like
judge,
not that sure, because this is something spiritual, and I didn't want to people like think wrong about me. Now I don't care, to be honest. But back then, it was, and I worked on my own limiting beliefs. And since this year, because
mhm,
the spirit said, okay, Melissa, you have to get on stage. It's enough is enough. Like, you have a mission with that. And on also astrologic chart, my mediumship is very, very strong. So I was born with that gift. So I have to share it. And since then, magic happens, especially with the psychic abilities. This is why my hypnotherapy is so successful, because I see the roots. I can read the subconscious, nail it, and then get it away, transform it.
Yeah. We have such parallels because I always had certain kinds of abilities, but I ignored it. I was like, I'm making
Yeah.
this up, even as a child. And then as I started really getting more, as I started getting more and more, studying and reading and, whether it's Akashic records or all these different kinds of things. And I didn't say anything to anybody, but all of a sudden and I took some trainings and I would go to a conference and I would sit next to somebody and I would say, I have something crazy to tell you. Can I tell you? But at first I'd ask my voice, I'm like, should I tell this person? I'd say, um, for some reason, I just see a bunch of ladybugs crawling all over you and a person in a blue shirt over your left shoulder. I hope this is not totally crazy. And the person started to cry. And I said, oh my God. She goes, no, today is the anniversary of my father's death. He
Oh,
always wore a
wow.
blue shirt and my nickname is
Wow.
Ladybug. And I was like, okay, I guess that's all right. So now I always say, should I tell this person? But I'm not that kind of person that can look at you and say, Melissa, I feel like such and
Hmm.
such is going on. So it just, for me, just comes
Yeah,
up
yeah,
randomly. But I always listen. I always listen. Whether it's that voice that tells me, turn left. I'm like, all right,
yeah,
I'll just turn left. But you have to start to really trust yourself and you have to know yourself.
exactly.
And, my kind of view is as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else or hurt me, then I'm going to follow that advice, even if it means, leave your house 5 minutes later
Yeah,
or
exactly.
whatever it is. I don't look at any kind of traffic as a problem. Like, this is a divine detour. There's some reason. But a lot of people don't get very comfortable with, and they hide those things because they're afraid to
Yeah,
get judged. But you talk about, and you've written a book about kind of, do we know why
yeah,
we're here, right? And I think so many people don't know why they're here.
unfortunately.
Why are you here? Why do you
I
think you're here?
think, you know how I see myself in this superhero movies. There are always like a Gandalf, a Dumbledore, someone who guides the hero. I think my mission is not to
Right.
the hero itself, but to awaken the hero,
Hmm.
to guide this hero and to tell him or her why she is here. So I see myself really as a guide, because I can see the spirits of the person and I tell like what kind of spirit he or she is, for example, angelic or whatever. So I see myself as a guide and to enlighten people, because the channel is really strong and I'm not hiding it anymore. So
Hmm.
this is my purpose here.
So how do you help other people find their purpose, though? Because you found yours. I know what mine is. It's very clear to me. And that's a very liberating feeling, by the way, because I think so many people, because they don't know why they're here, they hate what
Mhm.
they're doing, they don't know what they should do next. How do you help? What are some questions that you think people can ask themselves to help them figure out what their purpose
So
is?
there is a beautiful thing I learned in one of my classes. It's about what did you love to do when you were a little child, where you had the most joy. And I tell
Yes.
you mine, I was holding
Hmm.
the where we the hair. What is the name of this? Where we brush our hair, hairbrush.
Well, you see how little hair I have. I have
Yes,
brush.
yes,
Well, you
yes.
see
Now
how
I
little
got it.
hair
The hairbrush.
I do.
And I was singing into it. I was like into music and I imagined
Mm.
myself even back then on stage. So okay, then this is like my
Right.
purpose, staying being on stage, singing, and I love music because in parallel I'm also a DJ. I love to do something with music. So go back to your childhood and realize and remember what you did with joy the most. And not because if there is no joy, then you really miss life. It's all about joy and love.
And it's funny you say that, and I've heard that as well. And the first time I heard, I was like, this is why I'm so happy. When I was little, I would literally, I grew up as an only child, but I had lots of friends. My parents got me a big, like almost life size chalkboard, right? And I would play school, and I would make all the little kids come over, my friends, and I'd teach them stuff. And then when they went there, I had my little stuffed animals like in a little row, and I would teach them. Or I would play psychologist, and I didn't even know what psychologist was. I would make them sit down and I would just diagnose their
Wow.
problems and I would give them advice. And when I look now where I am, why am I filled with that joy, right? Why do I have that life? Because I'm a professor and I'm a coach, which is not a
Yeah,
psychologist, but
still,
still to some
for
extent,
sure.
you still are helping people. And I used to love to speak like you. In sixth grade, we had plays, we made up our own little skits. I took drama lessons for years. So when I think of all the things that brought me joy, it's not a surprise that I'm a professional talker,
Yeah,
basically, right?
yeah, yeah.
So whether it's in coaching or teaching or doing speaking engagements or podcasting. So I think that's a great way to think about it because so few people sit there and say, what brought me joy? Because I do think our souls know what we're really
Exactly.
meant to do. And then when we go to school, we're either told, you can't do that, or girls don't do science, or boys, should be firefighters and not nurses or whatever it is, right? We get told all these shoulds either by our parents, our school, our friends.
Exactly.
And now, I don't know how old you are, and no need for you to out yourself. I didn't grow up in the age of social media. I cannot imagine being a young person now growing up,
Yeah.
even very early, 3, 4, 5, and being told this is what you should
Oh,
look like,
yeah.
this is what you should
Yeah.
want to do, this is what a good career is. Um, so I think it makes it much harder, but that is a great
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's another question you think people should ask themselves, or what's something that they should think about to help them figure out this is what you're here for?
I think they should figure out, uh, they should touch spirituality here. Because if you touch the spirituality, even if it's religious scripts or whatever teachings, it doesn't matter. But you have to get in contact with these, that you connect again with the divine, with the soul, because it's not only like having a purpose. You have to be doing this. It's not about this is a side effect to finding the purpose. But I
Mm-hmm.
believe that we are infinite beings having an experience in the human body, and it is about raising
Mm-hmm.
the consciousness level. So if you raise your consciousness level and like getting to this oneness and nothingness at the same time, and it's very complex. We can even make a podcast only about that. Yeah, I could talk for hours. But this oneness and
100%.
nothingness, how
Yes.
I get there, they should ask themselves, how do I connect to my soul again? And what is the soul? Do some research or listen to podcasts or whatever. But really, it's beyond this material world and the spiritual world, but within balance, please, and not getting out of, because unfortunately, spirituality is also misused right now. And there are many people.
How is it being misused? How is it being misused? I'd love to talk about this
Yeah,
because I think there is, you know, before years, maybe it's more recent, but years ago, nobody would talk about
yeah, yeah, yeah,
spirituality, right? And now it's become not very mainstream, but more
yeah, luckily.
mainstream, even among my
Yeah, yeah,
lawyer
yeah.
friends, right? That, they're happily embracing it. But I think there's some kind of performative,
Yeah, yeah,
namaste,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
everybody,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that kind of stuff.
exactly.
And I don't, yeah, and there's, and there's the whole concept of spiritual bypassing and the concepts of toxic positivity. Now I'm throwing out all these
Hmm.
buzzwords, right? But where do you think spirituality stands today in the mainstream? And what do you think is good about how people are thinking about spirituality? And what may be a little bit
Yeah.
harmful?
So the thing is that there is no balance within these topics. So spirituality got like this, like I have to leave everything. I have to sell my car, my house, blah blah, as if it's like leaving the material world and getting to something soul, spirit, and so on. And looking, for example, looking at the numbers. Oh, 111. What's that? What that does mean? Da, 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 da. What does that mean? Like, oh my God, like, hey, stop, you make yourself crazy with these
It can be
questions.
exhausting.
Like, or I saw a feather, what does that mean? Blah blah, is this a sign from the universe? And like, or searching for a sign, and we say like universe, universe all the time. And I say, okay, where's the creator here? Like,